It's me. This is Monica. I'm gonna talk about astrology because astrology is cool. Astrology is fun. Um, I'm actually telling people about Mercury retrograde because that's coming up here on the 22nd of March. So that's actually like 2 days after the first day of spring. Um, but it's actually kind of already started. Like, the way people talk about Mercury retrograde, you think it's like this big shadowy monster, rah rah rah, scary. Well, um, actually, we could already see his shadow coming. It's like fee fi fo fum, you know, um, it's this fear mongering that I get very annoyed with, because babies are going to be born between these few weeks. Um, and their whole lives are going to be the Mercury retrograde horror story. No, we just need to be more responsible, realistic, and mature about um, our lives and just transits that we can be expecting. So, yeah, I hope that people will see it. Whatever. So, anyways, so March 22nd, things are going to be like going haywire and going wrong, and people are going to just be like, oh my god, my computer, I lost this, I did this, I destroyed that, Traffic's going to be a little crazier. Um, your words are going to be garbled. People are going to be getting into fights. They're going to be getting back with their exes for like 2 weeks, and then you're like, oh, okay. Oh, that's terrible. So, it's starting now. It's actually, this is the foreshadowing, the premonition. And it's actually not a premonition. It's basically Mercury's going to be going retrograde, which is basically going backwards. That's how it looks from Earth, so that's how we're just going to go with it. We're just going to go how it looks and not how it really is, because, like the way the world, so there's the sun, right? And then Mercury's doing this, and then we're going the other way. So blah, blah, blah. There's like great graphics around. Somebody sent me graphics to show you. And I'm like, I don't know how to put them in a live video. Hi, live person. Anyways. So, anyways. The thing about Mercury retrograde is that it's not as bad as it seems. And actually, Virgo is the Mercury retrograde of the zodiac. Because Virgos, they're like, you know what, you need to do it right. You need to do it right the first time. You need to do it right every time. You can't be messing things up. You can't just doing things good enough. Because later on, good enough isn't good enough when things are stressful. And so that's a serious reality. That is something to be considered. As of March 8th, we're in the retro shade. We're in the shadow, the pre-shadow of the retrograde period. So, if we mapped, everything on the zodiac, right? So there's 12 signs, but the 12 signs are a perfect circle. So it's actually 360 degrees. Very important number here. That's divided by 12. So each of those 12 little corners, 12 pieces of pie basically, they've got there's parts of 30 in each one basically. So it's like somebody got really ridiculous when making their pie, and they put nuts or something, like 30 on each of the little 12 pieces of pie. This is a huge pie. Zodiac is a huge thing. So basically, when a planet is going backward, it's going from like little nut 4 all the way to 16, right? And then at 16, he's turning around and going back. And that the period of his going back is the retrograde, but actually, that 16 point will be crossed again. And so, he's going back all the way to 4. And so even though it's happening now, like March 8th is the day it started. We already crossed 4. We're like into 8 now or something. We are on, yeah, we are on 8. So, we've been trucking along, or Mercury's been trucking along. He's going to get to 16, then he's going to go back all the way to 4, and he will reach 4 on April 15th. So if you didn't do your taxes, it's going to be, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on it now. Like, you're going to have to be very careful about doing your taxes as we speak. And then by May 3rd, that's when the retro shade, the shadow period, the afterglow, is actually over with. And Mercury will pass that 16 mark and continue on his merry way until the next retrograde, which is later in the year. So this retrograde actually happens entirely in the sign of Aries. So Aries, people born early to mid Aries are gonna be hit pretty hard. And it's just like Mercury rules transit, like transportation and commerce and just everything that has to do with communication. You might get sick for like 3 weeks and then be fine. And so here's some things that you need to do to survive Mercury retrograde. Do things correctly. Yeah, that's hard to do. I mean, to make sure that everything is backed up, everything is double checked. You cross your T's, dot your I's, make sure your Q's don't look like G's. All these ridiculous little tiny things that are actually kind of important. Because if you do it right the first time, you don't have to redo it. And if it's important, it's worth doing correctly and making those efforts. Excuse me. Had an unexpected visitor. And also consider that other people may not be doing things correctly. And so things that are like not going well for them are actually their difficulties with Mercury retrograde. And so as it starts now, if they didn't do it right now, they'll deal with it later. And so if they're not doing things right for them, you might get stuck on that end. And so I think patience with others and not being hypercritical is important for things, for human contact, for people getting along. Also to consider is that if somebody's been bugging you and they've been really like pushing your buttons these few weeks, you're gonna blow up during this Mercury retrograde. You're gonna finally just tell them off after the 22nd. It's because it's been coming and there's things that you weren't addressing and doing things correctly. So, there's other considerations. Don't just brush things under the rug and do speak up about what's not good. And also, if somebody just, starts yelling at you all of a sudden for no particular reason on March 22nd or between March and April 15th, March 22nd to April 15th, so it's about 3 weeks. A little bit. It's been a long time coming, and so you have to actually examine your own actions on how you've pushed these people to that point and how they're not dealing with it, because, either people are aware or not, and if you're aware, you have to deal with everybody who's not aware. It's like common sense. It's like, okay, so all of us that have common sense have to deal with all the people who don't have common sense. Like today, I went when the light turned green and I didn't stop to make sure that the people coming on the red lights were going to stop. I assumed that people at red lights are going to stop, and I almost, got hit and I threw a fit and I was, screaming and cursing. But it's also, I would stop for a red light. I know when there's a red light and I would stop, and so I have to take that preparation knowing that other people might not. So, I mean, it's not my fault, but it's also, I don't want to be hit with a car. And so there's, a level of value and blame. Just because you're right doesn't make it worth it to put up that fight. Another example, my favorite, is that pedestrians often assume that the right of way is equivalent or similar to immortality or forever being safe. Like somehow, being maimed for life and getting, an income from that and from my insurance company is gonna make up for the fact that you're missing a leg or you have a broken spine, or a severed spinal cord. It's you've really got to take care of yourself. You can't just do things just to make points. And so this is something that is very important during Mercury retrograde, and also during this particular sign. It's all happening in Aries. I know the sun is in Pisces, but Mercury's in Aries. Everything does follow the sun. The sun is the boss of this solar system, but we still kind of do our own thing, like everybody does. Hi, Caroline. So anyways, so Mercury in Aries, people are just annoying each other. They're saying things that are a little too rude, a little too brusque. So you always want to watch what you say and not be rude, especially in this period, because you're going to set things in motion where it does become this big kerfluffle. People get their feathers in a ruffle during Mercury retrograde, and even though it doesn't start until later on in this month, it's going to be coming up. It's totally going to be it's totally going to be setting the groundwork right now in March, because this started in March 8th. So and the retrograde does show up a lot, especially if you work with computers. And I should have known this. I had some retrograde issues starting last week, but I was born during a Mercury retrograde, so my life is always like a computer mess. And so that's part of the reason I don't like when astrologers say, "Oh my gosh, it's Mercury retrograde." No, it's okay. We can live through this. You just have to, adapt to it. And that's actually really good for you. Being able to modify how you're dealing with people works well, I think. Because, anybody who's ever worked in public service or just with the general public or in healthcare, full moons, people are insane. We know this. But there's people, eclipses, people are just crazy. This, I don't care how advanced of a scientist people are, medical doctors are like, "Oh no, it's the full moon. This is terrible." It's not, because actually there are people who are born on full moons and on eclipses. A really great example of someone born on an eclipse is Donald Trump. And so he has that sort of personality ingrained in him. So, those of us who, like I was born during Mercury retrograde, we're always living with this life that our computers are always messing up, or we say things backwards, things don't communicate well. And that's why I try to do like these Facebook Lives. Not very... Apparently I only do them when Mercury's retrograde, because I did it during the last retrograde. It's like a double negative. And so, that's when my computer seems to be working okay. And everybody else is going through chaos and trying to, unplug, plug back in, restarting, rebooting the whole thing. I'm like, I know how to make it work for me. And so doing things right the first time is incredibly important. Like don't half-ass it. Half-assing it is not going to get you anywhere, because not only will you have to redo it, but you have to clean up the mess that you created with that one half of ass. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense. It's like you clean up a bigger mess trying to only do half the work. You gotta not just work smarter, but also plan for the future. And so, March 22nd, that's when people are going to be getting cranky and bitchy at each other. That's okay, because you now have the tools and the strength to persevere this. Getting through these periods, it's pretty critical. It's especially coming up because there's bigger, more intense transits coming up, and so the Mercury retrograde in Aries, actually beware of burns and head injuries. Like, you're gonna knock your head on everything, and I'm already getting to that point where I've okay, we gotta be prepared. If you're somebody who's accident prone anyways, just, the my best advice would be like to live in a bubble. That's probably not the best advice. I don't know if they even sell bubbles to live in. Like, is that even an option? That's not something you want to create during Mercury retrograde. So if you're starting something, if you're signing paperwork, don't sign it until after April 15th. Don't, okay, you could work on it, you can redo it. Don't sign stuff because things are going to be mistyped. There's going to be some typo somewhere, and it's like the date will be wrong. It'll say 2016, and then the whole world will end, and you have to go back and redo everything. And that's hard. That's a pain in the butt. So, I know some people who are selling houses, buying houses, looking into some financial stuff. Don't do anything until after this. And it doesn't mean you stop. Retrograde has the meaning of everything with re in front of it. Recharge, reconnect, review, just everything that you just have to reassess everything. You have to go back. This is a great time to clean stuff. Go through old paperwork and be just shred. Go through it's a great time to just not necessarily purge, but review. Just go through everything and be whatever. Because this period, as you prep for it, it's part of the cleaning, and that's what I was saying, that it was the Virgo aspect of Mercury. So I think a lot of people know that, their sign has a planet. Cancers are oh, I'm a moon person, and Geminis and Virgos are oh, well, I'm Gemini, or I'm Mercury. Well, see, the thing about Mercury is that because he shares, there's different facets to him. Venus has different facets. There's the morning star Venus and the evening star Venus. Morning star is Taurus Venus. Evening star is Libra Venus. Very distinct. Mercury, the retrograde period, is the Virgo period. Virgos are good at getting through Mercury retrograde. They're actually probably the meanest people during Mercury retrograde because they're honest. Because Virgos are well, if you didn't mess it up at the beginning, you wouldn't have to be redoing it. And that's okay. I totally respect that. I'm one of those people. And so we have to accept that, constructive criticism is helpful for us. And so, of course, I would love constructive criticism on my little video here that I'm going to be posting on Facebook. And I'm also going to be doing some YouTube videos that I will be just uploading. They're going to be a lot longer, hopefully a lot more interesting, and a lot more specific, with a lot more specific details about what to be expecting. I probably will not have as many random things going on. When I say I have graphics, I'll be able to beep, put in the graphic, and it'll just cover my face or something. Instead of my face, you will see a graphic of what I'm talking about, or an image, and I will be able to discuss with you, or discuss in general what is going on. And so the one I'm planning for is actually Uranus and Taurus, which, was the height of the Great Depression, but then also after that's going to be Chiron and Aries, which was World War I, and then Chiron and Aries, World War I, and the Vietnam War. So those are the two upcoming, not live videos, but videos that I'll be posting on YouTube. However, this is my live video because it's a little mini thing on Mercury retrograde. And you're late to the show, Rachel. Sorry. But I'm actually about to turn off because, you know, it's how it goes. I think I said everything that I had to say. So yeah, constructive criticism, it's excellent during Mercury shadows, Mercury retrogrades, everything that you have to look at to redo. It's great to get input and not to get mad about it. So if you do have criticism or input, let me know in the comments or whatever. And I hope you guys check out my YouTube page when I get it all. Woo! Right, and I'm also having a sale on stuff. On readings. I do tarot, astrology. Let's do that. But as far as the retrograde, it's not as bad as it seems. Because some of us are born in it, and it's like, you know what? We live our whole lives during retrograde. It's not that bad. We can get through this. And it happens 3 times a year. How bad can it be? Alrighty. Bye.